Hey, 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 hey. Welcome to the Mastering Diversity Conference LinkedIn Live. It's Friday. Woohoo! And what a
Jack.
to end this week couldn't be better. We have S4C's Ryan Chappell and we have BAME Education Network's Chair Sue James. Now Sue wears other hats, and if you have a look on the scrolling banner, you'll see how you can get in touch with Sue and by email and Ryan by email. But you know what we are all going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about the zones, because S4C has kindly sponsored the Master in Diversity Conference 2023 Education Zone. And Ryan is a past deputy head. So his heart is not just with diversity, equality, and inclusion, but most importantly, with that in the realm of education. Okay? And so without further ado, first of all, I just want you to have a chat first. Guys, listen. First, I'll ask Ryan to introduce himself and tell us why he has been championing diversity and inclusion even before coming to S4C and why he's a part of the conference. And then I'll ask Sue to answer the same, and then we'll deep dive in. Remember, guys, we want you to give your comments, and you can watch offline with your coffee. But if you are here, don't just sit and listen and say, oh, amazing. We want to hear. Get involved, jump in, talk, put your comments. They'll be there. We'll put them on the screen, and we will just have a fantastic Friday morning. So, Ryan, over to you.
Well, morning, Bernie. Morning to everyone listening. So as Bernie said, my kind of passion and my career for the last 15 years has been in education, Welsh primary education, and working in 3 different primary schools in that time. And my kind of journey started, I think, with a lot of people, just that recognition of Black Lives Matter and really looking at in schools, what are we doing? How is our curriculum? How is our teaching? How are the books and the experiences that we were giving to our pupils really authentic, and talking about race and diversity and inclusion in Wales and in Cardiff, because that's where I was teaching, and not always thinking that we needed to go to America and look at things that were happening in America to justify what we were teaching and learning. So I had to go on a really big journey, and I'm probably a quarter of the way to where I want to be. And very interestingly, full circle moment, the first kind of organisation I came across on Twitter was BAME Wales. So I've known Sue now and the BAME Wales team for maybe 4 or 5 years. And it was just what I needed. It was just a group of really, really passionate people who didn't proclaim to have the answers, who weren't going to, do one thing and it was going to fix. There was a lot of discussion. There was welcome to anybody who wanted to be part of this journey. I recently left teaching and left deputy headship in May to pursue my kind of passion really for inclusion and diversity. And I've taken up a role now in S4C as the leader for diversity, sustainability and social purpose. And I think it's really interesting, and something we're going to talk about a bit later on, but a real big message in our zone, the education zone, is education doesn't stop when you leave school. And I'm really passionate that S4C is a really, really, powerful channel in Wales. And we've got a massive, massive responsibility to continue to offer experiences and to educate our audience. And that's done in kind of, on the nose, really just direct kind of content where we're talking about protected characteristics, but it's also how are we normalizing it and introducing it to all our programs so that it becomes second nature, and everybody in Wales and our audience at S4C are just exposed daily from program to program about diversity and inclusion.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. Ryan, you said something about how you've come full circle. I was so blown away, actually, when we started to talk about S4C and the zone. And you said straight away you dived into the education zone. And then when BayMed came up separately to me, I was like, gosh, I wonder if Ryan is going to want, because does he know BayMed? And it was just, when I said it to you, you said they started you. I was like, oh, come on, that is full circle. This is meant to be.
It was meant to be. And they're a fantastic organization, you know. And what I, you know, really admire about BayMed, it's not a career. It's things that lots of professional people are doing outside of their job. They're so passionate to make a real change, and not just tokenistic changes. You know, really getting educators to stop, really unpick what are they delivering day to day, what messages, where, you know, subliminal, lots of it is subliminal. I'll talk really quickly about something that really, you know, upset me. As a teacher, I'm a big fan of the Eisteddfod, and I would always go to a new school and I'd beg the head teacher, can I please be in charge of the school Eisteddfod? And coming from a kind of expertise in literature and, you know, languages, all the kind of the Welsh National Anthem was there, and there were pictures to go with the words, so all learners could learn what the anthem meant. And it was after BayMed, actually, we were just talking about simple things about, you know, teachers need to go look around their classroom, you know, characters on your wall, are they all white? The books that you're reading, you know, the scientists. And I was one of those teachers. And this anthem, without me knowing, all the images I've chosen were of white men.
Wow. No, really, we're always learning, honestly.
Yeah, and I really look back to that now.
Learning.
And, you know, by the end, it kind of got to PowerPoint version 4.0, where I was really on that journey then of, you know, these messages are really important. Those children from, you know, Black, Asian, minority ethnic backgrounds, and they weren't ever a lot in the schools I taught, but they were there. And it was really heartbreaking for me to think I've let those pupils down. And I you know, I hold that, and that would be something I'll always take with me, that I've got to learn from. Because they never saw themselves in the anthem. So what messages was I, as a deputy head of that school, giving those pupils, you know? And it really upset me. And it's just sometimes little things, they don't fix everything. But you've just got to sit back, and you've got to look at white privilege, and you've got to think, what messages am I sharing? And BayMed were fantastic. They never judged. It was never about judging what schools were doing wrong. It was just about dropping these questions, making us think in a different way, being a bit more open to unconscious bias. And it was something.
Yeah, honestly, 100%. Absolutely. And I see Caris here. Hi, Caris. She's from the Football Association of Wales. Now, Caris, do you know that your chair is going to be also speaking in the Diversity in Business and the Third Sector Zone on the day? Alice Carlton is going to be in the NatWest zone, NatWest sponsored zone. So, and I know you've booked, because I've seen your booking. So thank you for joining us, and come on. Keep us on our toes. Throw us some questions. Yes, let's see let's show you what we've got. Awesome. Now, how do you follow that introduction to you, Sue? Like, you have a hard act to follow on yourself right now, because we've been singing your praises.
Absolutely, and like Sivan, I can't take credit for the beginning. I was part of the founding group that started, formed at BayMed Network Wales, but I can't take credit for all of the work that we've done. They're an amazing team of us, and Sue, Davies and Chappell Horton have been astounding in terms of the work that they've been doing to promote anti-racism and to help raise awareness in Welsh schools. So let's give the context of me. I'm very poor at usually introducing myself. My name's Sue James. I'm a senior lecturer at UWTSD and work in professional learning and education. So if you trained as a teacher or interested in education, you are likely to see me involved in programs that advance your understanding or thinking about education. Prior to that, I was a teacher in London. I was a head teacher up in Brixton, and then moved back to Wales, and subsequently started my journey as a lecturer here. In terms of my journey to beginning to promote and get excited about diversity, I think my bias is evident, because it's part of my lived experience. But I went to a British Council conference on diversity, and when I looked around the room, I realised I was the only person of colour that was there as part of the conference audience, and that there was little to no representation in the education annals of people of colour, people from minority ethnic backgrounds in spaces that were making decisions and policy. And this happened just before the George Floyd thing. So for me, I suddenly was alerted to that idea of Audre Lorde, where she said, your silence will not protect you. And I realized that as an educator, I was never afraid to talk about diversity, but I never promoted that. And I realized that my silence hadn't enabled other educators to come through, and that this had to be my determined goal. As I reached the end of my career as an educator, I need to be there to support other educators to come through to make that difference. And so my journey started then. And then, of course, we had all of those other things that like sort of really brought it into sharp focus, that we need to do something and to make sure people move forward.
But what I like though as well about, you're the BAME Education Network, so your focus is definitely on the on ethnic minorities. But I'd just love to get your perspective, Sue, and then I'll ask Ryan as well, because you've been a deputy head teacher for years, so you would have some information on that. And in my book, I mentioned, well, there's time to plug it. It wouldn't take too long.
I read it.
Master Diversity, we go together or not at all. I actually do mention in the whole the challenges that the education providers have in actually ascertaining who are the students within the schools that might they have invisible exclusions, like those who are cognitively and neurodiverse, those that are on the spectrum, those that are having challenges that if you're not aware and you are not equipped to identify it, they go unnoticed, and these children end up being at a disadvantage. So I know that, Sue, you had a chance to read my book. I'm not sure if Ryan had a chance to read it, but could you comment on what I discussed in that and give me your perspectives, please?
Well, for me, I was a SENCO for years, which is a special educational needs coordinator when I was teaching in London. So for me, the whole thing of additional learning needs is really important, because those hidden disabilities do make a significant difference. And I think the main thing is for teachers to be vigilant. I've advocated for a long time that we need increased training to become aware, and I know that lots of teacher training programs are including more training for teachers. But I think that is always an ongoing issue for children and for educationists, because we are constantly improving our understanding of these things, and that opportunities to train and learn sometimes are rare. So yes, I agree with you. Those are essential things for us as educators to look at and to keep high in our priority list of what we're looking at.
And from what I understand, they have now shifted the focus and the burden, actually, the onus on the educators. Ryan, you want to come in and comment on that?
Yeah, I do. I think, if I'm honest, it's the reason I left education. I think teachers, it takes a village. It genuinely does take a village. And I think when I started my career and school budgets and the money that schools were allocated was much higher, and that was used really, really well, because we do identify, teachers work extremely hard and they do identify different needs, because you look at your typical class of 30, no two children are ever the same, and some children really do need you to differentiate and specialize in how they access the curriculum. But what you used to have when there was money is you'd have a really, really good team of support staff. And if you had a child that was dyspraxic, for example, you would have someone on that support staff that would have a timetable where they could work solely with that child or other children with similar needs, whether there was literacy issues, numeracy issues, emotional, which is a massive, massive thing, especially since COVID. Those children were guaranteed some quality time with someone that was dedicated and would have received more training in those areas. But the new additional learning needs bill has put more and more pressure on the teacher to just differentiate. And someone said to me once, you would never see a GP treating 30 patients in one sitting. And that's always stuck with me, because that's what it got to in the end. And I genuinely felt for a number of years as a teacher, because I was always teaching as a deputy, that I was letting children down. I've never looked at a class and thought everyone here has had a really good amount of my time and have progressed. And having that feeling, I didn't want to be in education anymore. So it's not that teachers don't care. It's not that teachers are not aware, but there's more and more pressure on teachers now, not just to teach. So how can you in a year offer all the training that teachers need? That training then comes with additional paperwork, comes with additional stress. So I think the answer is we need to go back and we need to fund schools, and we need those people back in, and we need more experts, because sometimes as a teacher, you're not a trained PhD person that specializes in autism, and those people are few and far between, because budgets are much, much less, and it's a really, really upsetting thing for a lot.
Because my view to me is that the bill is taken, they've thrown the responsibility on the teachers who are ill-equipped and not supported and not funded to do it. So to my mind, it's diminished the agenda and the focus and the priority that is required. And it really, puts me in mind of two of the other speakers that we're going to be having on the day, who are one, our Tom Gullick. He's a Princess Trust, ambassador, and he is visually impaired graphic designer. So that's really cool. And but he's on the spectrum, and he did not get diagnosed until really late, and he struggled so much through school. Similarly, Shazia Hussein, Apprentice Star, who's famously known now for this 2023 Apprentice Star, neurodiverse, and she's really famously known now for lobbying to get the earlier detection. And I know that there are some groups at the moment as well lobbying to change what this additional learning needs bill has put in place, because it's really, as you say, it's giving with one hand and taking back with another. Like really, it's a distinction without a difference. It's not.
But I do think, Billy, there is one positive to it.
Yes.
That if we go back in time, and any children who were maybe neurodivergent or severely disabled, physically disabled, they wouldn't have had access to a mainstream education. So I think a lot of kind of negative behavior towards those sort of people then comes from fear and the unknown. Whereas something that is happening more and more in schools, because more people are able to join mainstream education, the children in those classes are learning more about different neurodiversities, different abilities, different ways that people have to function, you know, whether that's a visual disability or an unseen disability. And hopefully then that will kind of move with them throughout their lives. So you won't have that kind of stigma that has historically been kind of put towards disabled people. And that really is my kind of passion in my role for S4C now. You know, people who didn't have that natural exposure through schools to people of different backgrounds. You know, my education was extremely white. You know, I went to Ysgol Llanhari, a fantastic school. You know, I've got a lot of good feelings about that school. But, you know, my exposure to Black, Asian and minority ethnic people was very limited until I went to university. You know, you had those kind of very traditional, typical, you know, you might have had the corner shop, which would run someone from kind of an Indian background, the Chinese takeaway. So again, even with race, you know, children are getting more natural exposure. I don't think it's great in all areas, and you can't kind of manipulate that because some areas are still predominantly white in Wales.
Yes, exactly.
But
you know,
like,
yesterday, I sorry to interrupt you. I see Harris has put something here to add to. It says, at the moment, we're seeing more and more discussion around the parents' role in educating children and supporting them in their journey, no matter what journey they're on in their lives, whether that be understanding their ethnicity and heritage, gender identity, disability, neurodiversity, etc. When it comes to disagreement in education of diversity and inclusion between schools and parents, are the teachers and schools in a position to continue their teaching despite the concern or disagreement?
I would say that, like, sort of, we would like to think that they would be able to, like, sort of continue their journey. But obviously, when you're dealing with issues of people's belief systems, the new part of the curriculum where we're looking at teaching about relationships, that causes conflict. And in some schools, parents have objected to what the curriculum is offering and asking us to look at. So we are, as educators, constantly facing that challenge of dealing with other people's expectations. And when I teach teachers, I often say to them, you know, you have to come to your own philosophy, but recognize that you are constantly going to be confronted by other people's philosophy on what your job is. I think teaching is one of the only jobs that everybody's an expert on because they've been to school and they tell you how to do it. And
I love that.
you know, so you have people going, oh, in my day they did this and it worked. And we are always on that back foot. But I think if we can get teachers to be comfortable and confident in their own personal philosophy, why do I do it? What's important to me? There will be times, like as Ryan just said, where your personal philosophy comes into conflict with what's actually happening. And I think for most head teachers, senior leaders in school, it's such a challenge where budgets are being cut left, right, and centre. That means that training opportunities become like diminished because schools can't afford to send their staff on training because they need to cover in the school. The course itself costs money. And then how do you disseminate that expertise across a school when you've got such limited opportunities to do so? Anything like this, they have always written good policy. I would say most governments, and particularly in regard to ALN. However, what they often lack is the funding to support the
Well, you know, to me, it's a matter of priority. You know, there is funding, and yes, we know that we are there. You know, we're tight. It's tightly stretched, but there are certain things that you've got to prioritize. And I mean, let's go back to the old, you know, cliche: children are our future. That's what we do. We made a song about it. Like, do we really mean it? If we think children are our future, and we're not really prioritizing something so important, I don't know. It beggars belief. And as Carrie says, everyone is on their own journey of learning, including the parents. Absolutely. And, Ryan, you said something earlier on that I just want to bring us back to when you talked about when you started out, and you were a part of the problem, even though you were supposed to be trying to fix it.
Yeah.
Yes. We are learning. And yesterday I was in an interview with Cardiff Life magazine, another plug. Yeah, what you take up your Cardiff Life next month. DEI is on it, right? Yeah, diversity and inclusion. Yeah. And one of the young ladies said, she's white, blonde. They were all white. And she said, oh, when she broached the Black History Month part of it, she said, oh, I don't know if I am able to speak to this. And I said, we need you to speak to it, because people listen to their own, don't they? And when you are a white person who's taken the time to educate yourself on it, then you've got to speak. Yes, feel confident that you can speak to it. Yes, we all have got to speak to it, but we listen to what Ryan, the power that Ryan has as a white male to speak to about BAME prioritizing the ethnic minorities in schools. That is far reaching and far more reaching, to be honest, than me saying it.
But I think, Bernie, the philosophy of BAME Ed Wales was always, this isn't a problem for Black, Asian and minority ethnics to fix. And there was a big thing. They celebrated white teachers joining because white teachers were in the majority, and as well intentioned as BAME Ed teachers were without those white people, the majority of teachers in Wales are still white. So you need those people to learn and adjust, because that's where you're going to have the biggest impact. And it's traumatic for people of Black, Asian, minority ethnics to always feel that this is their thing to fix. And it's something kind of bridging now into S4C. It's a massive challenge in the television industry, not just what we represent on screen, but we've got to make sure that people of all the protected characteristics can join a film crew and feel that they're not the tokenistic one person. They get uncomfortable. I'm not going to stay in this industry, because we've seen it happen time and time again. And Cymru Create Eagle, which is a Welsh-funded government incentive for the creative industry in Wales, which is massively developing at the moment. It's on their agenda, and it's fantastic to see. There's less and less discussions now, and there's more things like, what are we going to do? Because we can talk and talk and talk about the problem.
Honestly, that is the thing, Ryan. We're talking and talking and talking. So you said two things. One, it was apparent, but just in case people didn't realize it, I'm glad you said it. The fact that you and BAMED are doing this shows that when you started out on your journey, and your experience with them was that you felt they embraced you.
Definitely.
Yes? And that is so important, because we are not into this division, divide you and somebody else's rules. If there's division, you're not in control. The more you come together, Haley Dunn has been with Quaritech. She had been with Quaritech for 22 years, head of deliveries at Quaritech. Whoever is listening who is from outside of Wales, Quaritech is one of the lead, is not the lead in gender equality charity in Wales. And Haley, therefore, she's all about diversity and inclusion and equality. Haley has taken her time to be my coordinator to the run-up of the Master in Diversity Conference, and she's also joined the task force for us to do some work after that, because you said that, Ryan, it's not about tokenism. It is about doing something. And I know we're running out of time, but quickly, not that we're running fully out of time, but we want to give time for you to talk about the zones, because it's incredible what they have for the zones. But Haley here made a very important point. How much time is spent during teacher training to learn about diversity?
that like sort of Lil would be best equipped to give you the actual times. But
Yes.
in the last 2 years, because we have been pushing quite hard, there's definitely an increase in the teaching about diversity and having dedicated time.
Yes.
But we're also recognizing it isn't simply about having a dedicated, we've had a lecture tick.
Mm.
It's
Yes.
about looking at this in its broader sense, looking at the curriculum. So, what are we delivering
Yes.
in schools that promote diversity? What are we doing in our curriculum that addresses the issues that have been like sort of, I guess, promoting that those inequalities, promoting a lack of willingness to understand diversity. So we are like sort of definitely having more dedicated space to understanding diversity, but we're also looking at it. Certainly, I know in Cardiff Met and here in UWTSD, we're looking at it as part of the whole of what we're teaching, and not simply that we're doing a day dedicated to this. We're looking at
Yes.
it throughout the curriculum.
Fantastic. Brilliant. No, I have here another comment, and this one is from Marilyn Bryan Jones, and she says, I know a lot of teachers, and what I hear is that they do not necessarily feel equipped to deal with neurodiversity within the classroom. Some teachers find ALN so challenging in relation to behavior management and control in the classroom. Solution is often seen as special schools or specialized units in schools.
I would, as I said earlier on, training is like sort of paramount in dealing with this, and the research and the development of our understanding of how those things work is important. However, like sort of the special schools, I work with some teachers from special schools who are doing degrees with us. The work that happens in those schools is outstanding, and the expertise there and the structure of what they're doing in those schools, I think, meet the requirements of the new curriculum more so than most mainstream schools do, because they're offering opportunities for neurodiverse, for disabled people to recognize themselves as lifelong learners, and that the pace is not the issue. Because I think sometimes we've got these dates, like so at 16 you should have done this, by 18 you should have done this. Learning is not this like sort of one moment, and I think that's what you find in special schools. But I think there needs to be that cross-pollination, drawing from that expertise. The money is the big thing.
Fantastic.
Training.
Yeah. Thank you. Fantastic comment, Marilyn. Thank you so much for that contribution. And Ryan, do you want to add anything to that, or do you want to jump in on Haley's comment?
Yeah, I think we've what I've said, I still kind of stick by it, and I from my own experience of my children, a special school and moving a child to a specialized unit doesn't happen overnight. It's not an easy solution. Lots of things are put in place, so we try. All schools try to keep children in mainstream if it suits them, but when it really starts affecting their mental health and their own well-being, then if moving to a unit with less pupils, less stimulation, more specialized staff is going to help that pupil. And I do think that is the right thing, but it's not always quick fix and let's just get rid of this pupil, because it's a real challenge to get someone and to meet the criteria for a special school or a specialized unit within a school or within a kind of authority then.
Yeah. And then with what Haley has pointed out,
and I think Haley, teachers are very time poor. It goes back to what I said earlier with Sue. If you trained teachers to the level they needed and everything, then there isn't enough time. the school year would just go on teachers going in 9 to 5 to train.
Yeah.
And it goes back to this kind of thing. There's so many good resources out there that you would sometimes find out because when I started, there was more money. So you would go on much more training outside the school, and you'd speak to so-and-so and they would say, oh, have you heard of this resource? But teachers sometimes stick to what they know because they haven't got that time to go and explore different resources and different teaching materials, really, I think is the honest answer.
And as she says here, Caratech did some work for 10 years ago with educators in school called Fair Foundation. They worked with Cardiff University and developed a toolkit. Unfortunately, when the funding ended, schools couldn't afford to pay. And so it sits on the shelf.
I would say that there's that, I wrote a paper, like sort of a group of us wrote about citizenship. And what we notice is, and I say this with pride about Wales, is that we write some amazing policy. However, it often ends up sitting on a shelf, and what we call an accretion of like sort of good intentions, and gathering dust. And the people that should be using this are unaware that it exists, that there's this like sort of passing on responsibility to teachers, to educators. And then like sort of 5 years later, they review and they go, oh, but nobody did anything. And they come up with the same like sort of recommendations yet again. So what I'm like sort of banging on about now is like sort of we need to make people aware of what's there, that it shouldn't be on a shelf. It needs to be actioned, and we need to have the conversations about how can we do it with slender budgets, how can we work collaboratively to make things change.
And this is what this conference is all about, and that's why I'm so absolutely thrilled that so many organizations have come on board, have not just put their money there, but also put their expertise. And, honestly, it is not going to be something that's going to be on a shelf. And as long as I live, we are going to do it. That's why, that you say, you look at what you want as your end goal. And I always say to people, and then you decide, your decisions then lead to that end goal. My end goal for this conference was action, results. So that's why the task force is already set up. That's why we got the types of people like yourselves involved, because when you're coming out of these zones, you're coming out with a piece of work. You're coming out with something that's going to make a difference. And we're going to be following through. And next year, we're going to be saying, what did we achieve when all of this time that we took to bring all of you together and in one space in the heart of Wales, which is the City Hall. And, honestly, for it to remain on any of these things, to remain on a shelf, as you say, it would just be abominable. Christina says, I used to work in an inclusion center where the ALN teaching and learning took place on the site of the mainstream school, and pupils had access to mainstream. In terms of training for that role, it was very much learning on the job, as even though I wasn't employed as a teacher there, I have teacher training and had no training on ALN at the time of my degree. It was a fantastic place to work. Thank you for that contribution, Christina. Does anybody want to comment on that or add anything? Any of my...
It just, I think it's, that the time poor, budget poor, and, releasing teachers is quite a challenge, because there's less and less supply teachers. Some supply teachers, because they don't know certain schools and classes, they find classroom management quite difficult. So you find that your management team then are not reading those policies that Sue was referring to, because they're assisting classes and things like that. It's just going to come down to a massive investment in budget, because it's not getting any better.
And it is so important because, we're dealing with lives here. I think about even when I was in school, there are several people that I can refer to, but there's one particular young lady, and she struggled in the mainstream clearly, I believe she was clearly on the spectrum, and she didn't learn the way others learn. And she always, back in those days, I think don't know if they do it now, but they have you who comes first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and who comes last in the class. That doesn't happen. But that was the structure back then. And she always struggled coming last. Well, I caught up with my classmates recently. That young lady is a multiple author, 3 books. She has her own business, and she also has her own radio program. Okay? So what does that tell us? Clearly, we were failing her in school.
Yeah.
No, not all stories come out like that. Yes? So it is imperative that we solve this. And kudos to you, Ryan. And I'm so thrilled that now you are placed in a space where you are not, you're unbridled, and you can help so many from that one space, and that you're actually doing it, because not everybody who can is. So let us know. I think that takes us right now into what we're going to do on that day, the zones. Over to you guys. Tell us about the zones.
I think we're really excited about our zones. We've got the education zone. We've got some fantastic speakers. So Hugh Griffiths, who's a colleague of Sue, is going to start. He's really, really passionate, and he's got a fantastic collection of stories about Black, Asian, ethnic minorities throughout Wales that are not the typical stories. And I think that's really, really important.
So we're starting with storytelling.
Actual, history kind of professor. And then we're moving on to hear about a teacher who works in a Muslim secondary school, and how can she influence the literature that her pupils are viewing? Is the literature promoting diversity and inclusion? Are there people in that class who are dreading that because they are the only person of that kind of ethnicity that the book is referring to? Yes. We've then got a panel discussion. So we've got some head teachers who are giving up some time to come and join. Show Racism the Red Card. Hopefully somebody from the government. We've got people from LEAs, and Natalie Jones from SLC is going to be hosting that with the question, how are they mastering diversity in their role? Yes. We've got Ian Timbrell, who's just left education like myself to set up a consultancy for LGBTQ and the RSE framework.
Yes.
So, we've tried to, the big focus is ethnicity and in the education zone, but we wanted someone else then to think, right, the wheels have started turning, there's a long way to go with kind of education about Black, Asian and minority ethnics. Yes. A long way to go. Yes. But how are we then not leaving other people from those protected characteristics behind?
We've got to. That's what the essence of this conference is. Yeah. We need to contemplate all the protected characteristics in every sector. That is why I did not split them up in terms of the protected characteristics in and of themselves. It's in sectors, and how are we treating with all of these protected characteristics within these sectors.
And then, thanks to Sue's creativity, we're going to finish our morning in the education zone with an exciting Wales all schools in Wales are eligible. Primaries up to year 9 in comp, including special schools. Then we've got a competition with some fantastic prizes. The prize is kind of an experience for the 6 schools that end, but we're not going to say too much about that yet. We're going to leave it. The big reveal is on the day at the end of the education zone then. So I'll leave you with a little bit of a teaser.
Yes. Sue, anything else you want to add about the zone, or are you keeping tight-lipped now?
I'm not. I'm just so excited about the opportunity to reach wider.
Yes.
And for us, as like I said, from reading your book, I understand the whole idea of an echo chamber, and what we don't want to become in the network is that but we want to reach wider, and we are so privileged to have like Sir Ryan as part of our group, and he's got that ability to reach beyond us. Obviously, as a network, we're developing our own expertise and our understanding of our lived experience. But what we also recognize is that in order to change things for children and for teachers, we need to reach wider. And so we are absolutely thrilled that this is something that's going to happen. And I'm trying to be good and keep zipped.
No, honestly, you know, the things you mentioned, echo chambers, because I do talk about echo chambers and knowledge bubbles and, you know, groupthink, all these various things that we just fall into without actually realizing it. But they actually deter us from being able to achieve anything in diversity and inclusion, because and it's quite inadvertent. We don't realize we're actually putting ourselves in these positions by how we interact and interface online, who we hang out with, not being open-minded. You know, one of the things I say in my book is I'm in a mind expansion drive right now. I want to expand the minds, because once the mind of man is expanded, it will not resume its original position. So we want people to start, and also education is all about, really, it's expansion of mind. Yes, it is giving knowledge. Knowledge is power. So we want to empower everyone with the knowledge that we need to together make that difference. And we can only make that difference within the context of how long we are here. And none of us know. So we have no time to waste, which is why I'm so pleased that we all are taking advantage of the moment now. Yeah, we have to. We are in a race. We have the baton, and it's our responsibility to run our leg to the best possible at the fastest pace, thinking about the ones behind that came before us and those who are waiting for us, and that's all we can do. To hand that baton off when our time is up, somebody else continues. But while we are in this space, it's our responsibility, because of our privilege, and yes, we are privileged. Read the book. You'll find out how much privilege you really have. Yes, and with privilege comes responsibility. Now we're coming up to the very last bit of it, right? Because I'm going to come off my soapbox, because I keep telling people, get off your soapbox and pull up a chair. So I'll get off my soapbox now, and I'll ask. We are on 11:17, and we end at 11:30. I would like you each to just share. There might be something you want to share, or there might just be something you want to underscore. Yes, that you've said before. Please. Now is your moment. I'll start with Ryan. You look like you're ready, yeah? So I'll start with you, Ryan, and then we go to Stuart. Let me spotlight you. There you go.
For me, but I think what I want from this conference is for a bit of pressure to come off schools. I was in a meeting recently where we were talking about kind of race and diversity and ethnicity. And it was always going back to, well, schools could be doing it. And I think sometimes we've got to really, really look at the word educate, and education doesn't happen just in schools. And S4C, you know, that's my kind of mission, is how can we really, really educate Wales? There are going to be some people that watch our programs with lived experiences, or they have friendships or relationships that have lived those experiences. They are more aware. But I'm also really, really passionate about those communities where ethnic minorities are very little, or LGBTQ plus is very little, or they don't come across people with different types of disabilities. I think our role when we educate is not just to educate the people that are listening and are keen. It's about really casting that net as wide as we can. I'm just really, really keen to, you know, work with anybody in the television industry or in the education industry that, you know, get those messages out there that the television industry is an industry that is available to everybody from every background. And just the more people who take those steps, and there's always got to be a first couple of people to do something, and they are the brave souls that will always have done something that really makes a powerful change in industries, in organizations. But at the end, for society, it's all about making society a better place. And I think television companies and television programs are extremely powerful, and that responsibility lies on our shoulders as the Welsh channel, the Welsh television channel for Wales. And like you're saying, I'm going to keep going. There's some days where I just feel it's an impossible mission, but you've just got to keep going, and step by step, and every little interaction I make, or every new person I meet that's interested or has something to say about their experience in the television industry, is just keeping me going at the moment. But I'm really keen to widen my network. I've only been there since June, and I want to hear off more people. I want people with lived experiences contacting me and telling me what should be on our channel, what we're doing well, what's the next stage, how can we always be improving with diversity.
Awesome. Yes, thank you for that, Ryan. Thank you. I'm so thrilled that you're a part of what we're doing right now. You have enhanced it in ways that you do not yet begin to comprehend, and we are so grateful. Thank you so much. And now we have Marilyn saying, support. We do need the wider community to work with us, parents, community members, everyone. And Haley had said before that she's been approached to be a governor of a new school. Well done, Haley. And so she will be in your zone. Yes, fantastic. You know what else? She'll be in your zone as well, telling you, wrap it up. Your keynote is about to finish. She's been cracking the whip on that day, aren't you, Haley? Right, over to you now, Sue.
Well, for me, really, I was talking last night in a group that we have called Time to Talk, which is a support group. But what are we really wanting is for people to see one another as unique, special, beautiful individuals, and to treat you as just that, and to be human. And for me, really, I'm keen to promote the idea of us being individuals and being comfortable in our identity, because when we're comfortable in our own skin, you're able to walk with your head held high in any space. So that's one thing that's really quite paramount in my mind. But my main ambition for this year is to make sure that Wales recognises its ambition is something that to become an anti-racist country is a fantastic ambition, and that we've got to genuinely commit to making sure that that's known, and it's not just another document that we put on a shelf, that we pride ourselves in having created this wonderful ambition, that we actually achieve it by doing work, by recognizing that need for that cross-pollination, as I talked about earlier on, working with other communities, but by reaching out and recognizing that we develop our understanding of our issue in our echo chambers, but we need to expand our reach by sort of reaching out to others in order to facilitate the change. So for me, it's about promoting those really fantastic policies and ambitions Welsh Government has for Wales, and making sure that teachers are aware of it and feel supported in order to achieve it, and that those conversations need to happen so that we know what they need.
Fantastic.
And can I just add one more thing? Just thinking of something I learned very quickly from working with Sue years ago. It's people have got to be okay and feel it's okay to ask questions, and to have conversations. I think a big thing that we don't do as white people is there is this fear, and it's if I say this, is this racist, or is this homophobic? And I think the people who go through that thought process before asking the question should just reward themselves by saying, well, the fact that you're asking that shows that you're thinking. And if it is offensive, I've been to, meetings with BMed Wales where, I kept using the word BAME and it upset some people. And we've had those conversations. They've been uncomfortable and people will never agree, and diversity isn't, doing one thing that fixes it for one protected characteristic groups, but ask questions, and if you're from a protected characteristic group, it is exhausting. It is, but we've got to just, I think, find that energy if we can in ourselves, not to look at it as another person asking a question. We're bringing one person closer to, helping.
Exactly, because you will not achieve anything if you're not prepared to make mistakes. If you're not prepared to make mistakes, then don't do anything. And then
I've made them in teaching. I've made them in meetings with Sue. I've said the wrong thing. I've upset people, but I've learned. So I'm moving forward. I'm more confident.
And I've got a little anecdote then, because I was brought up in the Valleys and I don't use it a lot, but I went to teach in London and I had always been told that I was half caste. That's all I was ever told, that sort of my identity was half caste. I had no idea that was a negative connotation. It was uncomfortable, but hey, that's what we were called. Teaching in London, I remember going into the staff room and said to the staff, "Oh, that little half caste girl," and the whole staff was shocked that I'd used this term. And it took me a while to understand why I shouldn't, and how to, and when you've offended somebody, you take a step back. With regard to the BAME thing, that debate goes on and on and on. I don't have an issue with it. However, I know other people do. So I say network, because I know that they do. And I think we have to find ways around it.
And it's a moving target. This whole thing is a moving target. Every day something else comes up. And why it comes up? Because every day more people are expressing how they feel. So the more people are expressing how they feel, the more we understand all the ways in which people have felt excluded, othered, offended, but they said nothing. But because we have now opened up the platform for people to speak, then we have to be open to hearing more. And it comes back to the whole matter of mind expansion. And I read from a little bit from my book here, page 667. I said, there is a belief to which I also hold, that the mind of man, once expanded, cannot assume its original position. As a result, I'm on the mind expansion mission too, and this is what we all are about. Expand the mind to think beyond our own lived experiences. Expand our minds to ask ourselves, is this the same for my fellow traveler? And if not, why not? And more importantly, how can I help to change that? Expand our minds from crowd immunity to the inequalities that exist. Think independently of our cliques, our family values, negative influences, and selfish ambitions. Expand our minds to become the change by embracing true allyship. And I go on to talk about privilege. If you want to understand what that is, get the book. I'm not the only person who talks about privilege, but it's here, right? Okay, and
I did your privilege test, and I absolutely
you did the privilege test.
I had none.
What happened?
I did the privilege test, and I was your person in the audience who had none.
Wow, guys, you need to read that. Yeah. Oh, that's yeah. We just need to open our minds. We're on the last couple of minutes, so let me see what Marilyn says here. Forward into growth. Yes. Ask the question. Backwards in comfort. We need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Absolutely.
And
yes.
We need to open up spaces for people to have the conversations and not to waste too much time on the lexicon, because language changes all the time. It's constantly, it's a shifting target, and that when the term black was used, like initially was just so rejected, and now it's
I know I'm very comfortable with the term black.
Yeah.
Yes. But you know, you said something about privilege though, Sue, and I just want to commend you on air. You said you couldn't find any, you couldn't identify with even one of the areas of privilege. But look at you. Look at you. Even though you are not, you know, say quote unquote privileged in the, you know, in certainly in terms of that test. Look at what you're doing. You're empowering. I say to people, you're privileged, you have a responsibility to empower, but you're empowering. So there is no reason for us all not to get involved and get in this space. And actually, if we find that the circumstances around us are disempowering, we can empower ourselves. And also, and you know how we do it? By empowering others. I always say, and any day you see me and I'm in bright colors and I'm looking all whatever, it's because I'm having a hard day. I work on myself. And whenever you help other people, you help yourselves. We're out of time, guys. Oh my gosh, this is exciting. Guys, listen, that's another term that people don't like. They don't like guys. But hey, I have to try to get out of my vocabulary. But we see you on the 18th, a week Monday. Yes, go to the zone, come to the conference. We have over 800 tickets booked. The zones are ram-packed, right? So you better get there on time. If you booked and you lounge around, you won't get into the zones. I'm not joking, right? They're oversubscribed. First come, first served. See you guys. Thank you so much. Don't go anywhere. You stay. All right. Bye, guys. See you soon.